Good day, everybody. We're here again. It's the Startup and Innovators show. Yes, it's a super show. 3 in 1, 4 in 1. Yeah, let me add myself. But then we have people that have been here before, but they're coming in different capacities to this time around. I'm sure you it's a bumper harvest. It's a bumper show. Plenty to unbundle, plenty to unpack. Yes, my big bro is here. Professor, it's not doctor again, no, Professor Charles Orbih. Prof, welcome to State of the Nation.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chief. Glad to be here.
Where have you been?
I don't know. I've been everywhere, in and out, all around. I've been here in the beautiful state of the Tar Heels, otherwise known as North Carolina,
Okay.
and everywhere else. And
Doing your thing.
trying.
Okay.
Trying.
Okay. So we also have, well, you have been smiling already. Amos Tarfa. Amos the maths guy. Somebody was asking me, is this still the maths guy or the AI man?
The same.
You know that because they said when you started it was always calculus. Now you don't even say anything about calculus again. It's AI. That you just dump calculus like that. That what happened to all those books you wrote about mathematics?
So AI is actually all mathematics. That's why it's the natural progression.
Okay. Then my homeboy is here too. Toks, Shopeju. Toks, welcome.
Thank you.
Toks was still with us about 2 weeks ago. Toks, what's happening to you?
Well, not much. We're still working in the data analytics, data engineering environment, and heavily infusing AI into everything we do. So that's a lot of synergy and working on a number of things with Amos, the math guy. So we've had some productive sessions. So
fantastic. Well, I'm sure to those watching, Professor Orbih is a cybersecurity expert. When you remember, those of you that are old enough, remember WWW then was one of the pioneers. If you don't know, he's a veteran. He looks like he's 30, but so don't let's be carried away. Amos, of course, was going to do a lot of talking about AI and Toks the data man, from Ali Button to Schlumberger. Toks can tell you how many crude oil has been untapped under the soil. When I interviewed him talking about fracking, I've always had fracking, but the way Toks explained it, So when my son watched it, said that if you did understand what Mr. Toks was saying, you can never understand anything. I said, of course.
wow.
But today, we're going to talk about preparing your child to lead in the AI and STEM economy. So clearly, we're looking at the future, and the dynamics here is that all these things are interwoven, whether we like it or not. They are interwoven, they're interlocking, depends on your choice of what. English itself is dynamic. I'm sure it must say English and maths are related now, But gentlemen, this question is to all of you. Just spend a minute or two to answer this question because there's some question I might ask you individually, but some you all have to say this. I'm asking everybody. So I'm going to start with Prof, then Amos, then subsequently Toks. So the question is, gentlemen, like I said, the World Economic Forum has projected that 65%, of children entering primary school today will end up working in jobs that don't exist yet as of today. And majority of those jobs will be AI and STEM-driven jobs. So yet across Africa, most school curricula still look remarkably similar to what they did 30 years ago. I'm sure you all agree with me. So textbooks, rote learning, examination, that reward memorization and critical thinking. Those are the kind of textbooks they have. So as people who sit at the intersection of technology, education, and business, what is your honest assessment of how prepared African children currently are for the economy they're about to inherit? And how wide is the gap between where we are and where we need to be? Prof, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chief Ade, and my colleagues, Amos and Toks. Good to be here with you, gentlemen. So you said, Ade, yes. I don't know if I look 30, but you said it, so I believe you. But I've had the privilege and the opportunity to be around, to be some of the best in the technology space, the likes of the Sun Microsystems of the world, for example, that used to say, we are the dot in the .com, back in the .com days. You had the opportunity to be with the likes of IBM, which the big blue still very much around today. Really, you cannot do anything today, whether it's AI, whether it's cybersecurity, whether it's internet. You can't do anything without IBM. Actually, I think they are sitting there just collecting the royalties because they created the technology that is driving all this stuff, starting from a system network architecture. So whether you are implementing client-server computing, as the case may be, we owe it all to the big blue. However, we are in a generation now, in an age where everybody is talking about, like our friend, I'm sure is going to be talking about AI. The reality is that before AI, there was something called the internet. And essentially, the story around internet was we were going to change the way people live, LIVE, the way people play, and the way people trade, do business. And that's essentially the model that AI is building on, changing the way people live, play, and work. And so internet came, and every child, mostly in the Western world, got involved in internet from the comfort of their rooms. They can go to school, they can buy stuff, they can play video games, and so on and so forth. Of course, AI was there at some point, but in the manufacturing sector, where people were using robots. But today, it's become so ubiquitous because you now have it on your handheld devices, the telephones, you have it on the computer system, you have it in the watch, you have it on TV, you have it everywhere. But realistically, it's always been there, but the implementation was limited to a certain segment of the businesses. And now everybody is talking about automation. I'll leave that to Mr. The mad guy to talk about. So to your specific question, children being left behind and not having the ability to participate in what is driving the world today, that the jobs they're going to be doing the next few years are jobs that have not yet been created. I think that assessment is to the greater extent very true. And it's not just going to be the kids in Africa, but kids everywhere. And I think that is what is driving the collaborative efforts the three of us are trying to have here to make sure, even though the children of Africa did not participate in the previous innovation and evolution that took place, but want to make sure that going forward, they have a chance, at least give them a chance, let them have an opportunity. That's why we launched STEM clubs across Africa in October of last year. We are going to be building on that. I'm sure that will be coming on. Okay. We'll talk about that later on.
All right. Amos, the maths guy.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Charles, for laying the groundwork for us. Because the reality is that the mistake people are making with AI is they are not looking at it as an infrastructure layer. AI is like a layer, and then you build on top of it. The internet was a layer, and we built on top of the internet. The problem is, as Professor Charles has said, if you don't get involved now, you can't build on the infrastructure. You are cutting out a whole community of people that don't have this leverage. So there was a time where you wanted to study your chemistry textbook and memorize plenty things, and we rewarded you for doing that because we needed human beings that knew Ababio back to back. What happens when knowledge graphs and RAG, which is retrieval augmented systems with AI, what happens when those systems can handle knowledge graphs better? That means I can get A1 and not have a job. That's a problem. You have to pay attention to what is the market looking for. And the market is not looking for some of the things that I wrestled with. When I went to school, Google was for looking up lyrics of songs. That was the only thing we did with Google. We looked up the lyrics of, songs. So my concern for this generation is that and their teachers. Like, my heart goes out. I respect teachers. I love teachers. But I just want us to be careful not to be stubborn in realizing the reality. Because you can, if we don't pay attention to the currency that matters right now, many children will be at home, and we don't want that. But the other reason why this is really important, and then I'll pass it on to Brother Toks. The other reason why this is important is that we need more revenue generation mechanisms in Africa. We actually need more. We need more, and we have the capacity to have more. But that is only partly by connecting to the global economy. And AI is one of the best tools to do that. So that a child in Badagry or a child in Garkida or a child in Edo State can be programming a website for a business owner in Austin, Texas. How crazy is that? And all they needed was those tools. So imagine if we use our school system as a way to lift the children to a point where they are globally competent. That's what we are begging schools to really think about. So yeah, I hope I was able to kind of answer that dimension. But I'll tell you this, the 65% of jobs, let me give parents examples of jobs that are now becoming popular. Agentic AI engineer. Where was that job 10 years ago? Nobody had that job. But that's one of the biggest jobs. Agentic AI engineer, generative AI engineer, prompt engineer. So you guys are beginning to see, because some people are losing hope of like, what will I do if these jobs can do my work? I mean, if this AI can do my job, that means I won't have a job. No. There will be displacement of jobs, but there will be creation of jobs. That is just the reality. The question is, are you positioned to be part of the creation of jobs? Or are you just going to despair? It's like being a typist. Imagine your job was a typist before, and now we have voice to text apps. Are you going to sit there and keep fighting and say, I'll just get faster in typing? No, you ask, how can I be a voice to text editor? Now you've moved to a new realm. So everybody needs to think creatively. Let me say one more thing, Mr. Ade, because you mentioned exams. Creativity is lacking in a lot of our education systems. It's almost like a penalty to be creative. Do you see what I mean? Because we want you to only write the answer. The answer is 5. But creativity is part of what inspired the best scientists. If there's a school owner listening or a teacher, I just want to plead with us. Many children want to be creative, but we sometimes put them in a box. Can we allow some creativity? Because creativity is rewarded in the AI revolution. That's why we need to make sure we do that as well.
Brilliant. Toks, are you there? Toks, we lost him there.
No, I'm right here. I'm right here. So multitasking, as we'll have to do in the AI world.
Granted. So how wide is the gap between where we are and where we need to be?
So just give me 1 second. Just give me 1 second.
While it's getting set up, Mr. Ade, sorry, Chief Ade, I just want to mention that while he's getting ready, once he jumps on, I'll stop. It's just that the American side is also critical for the diasporian families.
Okay.
Please ensure that your children's education is not benchmarked with America alone. Look at Taiwan, look at Singapore. That is critical because we are going out there to get talent for a reason. So over to you, Toks.
Toks.
Thank you about that. And I was, segue into that in the AI, in the what's the gap between where we are and where we need to go, right? Just as you can see right now, multitasking, having to do duties. You can't say, I'll stop being a dad, because you're working, because obviously a lot of us have to work remote. So that's part of it. We learn how to multitask. So I have a slightly different view on the gap between where we are and where we need to be. Nigerians and Africans are adaptive by definition, right? There's been a statement that's been said that, I'm Nigerian, so if other people are on the call, not Nigerian, I'm not trying to single out Nigerians, but one of the things is they said, if you go somewhere you don't find Nigerians, that means that people cannot succeed there. So the average Nigerian knows how to multitask. Nigeria is a country that works heavily based on cell phones, right? Think about our bank transfer system. It's much better than the system in the United States. So the average Nigerian knows how to adapt, right? I want to call out things like, think about things like advanced free fraud or Yahoo. Think about how Nigerians were able to use technologies in ways people didn't think of. The beauty about AI right now is that it's cheaper for a young man to learn about AI than to learn how to do Yahoo to feed his family. So that's a very good place for us to be. Nigerians pick things up very quickly. I work in the IT industry, data analytics, data engineering, IT support, cloud, etc. And I've worked with people from India, which a lot of people call the gold standard. And the truth is that Indians are not better than Nigerians. In many cases, find Nigerians that are as good or better. So what I would say is that what all we need is just to throw that training at the youth, and they will pick it up and they will eat it up very quickly. So I would say the gap is just getting young men, right, from high school all the way up to adults, up to 40, 50, right? I have my brother. He's a retired banker. He's been a business person. He's learning cybersecurity. He's asking questions. How can I learn AI? And that's the average Nigerian mindset. You have people in their 60s who have all kinds of positions and money, and they're still going to get more degrees. So I would say the distance is just connecting the dots, giving people access, right? The problem, we don't have a problem of laziness. Problem we have is a lack of opportunities. Nigerians don't like doing things that don't bring value. And so if you show value, I think I think this is a very good place, for us to be. So it's a slightly different perspective, but as I said, my dad was a sociologist, and I learned to look at the culture, not looking at it at an individual level, but looking at it from a large scale level. So a little bit slightly different answer, but that's my perspective.
Yeah, I mean it's a discussion. So, but Toks, let me start with you with my next question. I mean that we're talking on role of parents in the tech first future now. What I did earlier on was we're looking at the urgency of the moment, which you all addressed. To very. So, role of parents in the tech first future. Most parents watching this program love their children deeply and want the best for them clearly. So, but many are themselves products of a pre-AI education system and genuinely do not know where to start, right? So, a parent in
Correct.
Lagos, Abuja, London, or Atlanta watching right now may be asking, my child is 8, 12, or 16. What do I do tomorrow morning to begin preparing them for the future? Now, beyond telling them to learn coding, what are the three most practical, accessible, and affordable steps a parent can, take today, vis-a-vis the question I asked, regardless of their own technical background, to begin repositioning their child for leadership in AI and STEM economy. So, Tokes, let's start from here.
So, first thing I would say is stop holding your kids back. The
I like that.
K-12 system was designed to produce workers, right? I have a gift of being able to look back. I saw my grandfather's standard 12 notebook, and he was drawing. There were drawings of anatomy and multiple things. With a standard 6 education, you could work for the British government as a clerk, and you could move up to any position, including head of service in any department in the under the British colonial system. Right? So let's think about that. If your child is doing very well in class, right? Chances are they are not being pushed as much as they can be pushed, right? So if your kid is making all A's, right, that is a good thing. But that also means that you're not allowing your kid to explore the point where they can reach. Amos was a Jets, head of Jets, and I was involved in Jets because I had a lot of people older than me, 5, 6, 12 years older than me, who were doing well in sciences. I started reading modern biology in primary 6, right? I looked forward to learning, and so back in those days, parents had a problem. How do you keep on teaching a child who wants to learn? Right now, that problem doesn't exist, right? So I would say learn about AI yourself, right? Learn how you ask questions. Go to ChatGPT or Claude, ask questions. How can I train my kid the way Bill Gates was trained, right? How can I train my kid the way Steve Jobs was trained? How can I train my kid the way Mark Zuckerberg was trained? Don't wait for school to equip your child with skills. I've been working, since probably about 2006, And the truth about it is that after you've been working for a while, nobody cares about your degree. You know, whether you have a degree in English or you have a degree in computer engineering, nobody really cares after you've been working for a while. What can you produce? So stop looking at just trying to get your kid into college or trying to, put that, that feather in your cap. It's about skills. That's one. Two, start teaching your kid or your children real skills. Carpentry is not going to be replaced by AI. Plumbing is not going to be replaced by AI. Being an electrician is not going to be replaced by AI. Knowing how to sew clothes or being a mechanic is not going to be replaced by AI. And so right now, we have a generation of the older people are retiring. You're still going to need these type of things. And so the world of just having one profession and that's what I'm going to do for 35 years doesn't exist anymore. Look at all the tech giants. They all have multiple skills. Like Elon Musk can work on cars, he can build rockets, he can do different things. And so this is the era of the polymath. Every child has that in them. And so if your child has multiple skills, it doesn't mean that they're confused. It just means that there are other skills that you can help that child with so that they can succeed. So those would be two things, not exactly three, but those would be two things that, that I would mention.
All right. Prof, let me go to you before I go to Amos so that I can recycle here. Prof.
Okay. Well, I think I agree with Toks in general and in principle. I think that we as a people, we have a tendency to say that our child or our children, we want them to become us. We want them to replace us. In other words, if I'm an engineer, I want my child to be an engineer. If I'm a doctor, I want my child to be an engineer. The reality with that assumption is the fact that when we do that, we are pigeonholing our kids and not allowing them to grow and become who they have been created to be. I think that perhaps the better way to let our children grow to become who they are made to be is to allow them to explore the environment. And I think as parents and as guardians, we essentially provide them with the opportunities. And I think Toks also alluded to that. Let them have the opportunity to explore. So we give them tell them the whole spectrum. This is what is available to you. Now you create your own path. And all we have to do as parents to guide them along and let them become, again, because that is where they are going to be more fulfilled when they are participating in that which they were made to be. Because if I want my child to be like me, so that essentially I want a replica of me, it can be boring, right? But I want them to be who they are, who God has created them to be. And the only way to do that is to show them the opportunities that exist. And in the world that we live in today, whether it's in the world of cybersecurity, whether it's in AI, whether it's in something else, everybody is not going to be a Gen AI whiz, but they can be a marketeer or somebody who's selling AI because somebody is going to want to buy a solution. And somebody has to become the person talking about that solution. I mean, Amos and I have this conversation back and forth. AI, two parts. You have the content aspect of AI and you have the context aspect of AI. Because AI can enable you to create content very quickly. I think he talked about using AI to create a website, for example. It can do it in seconds, whereas if you give it to somebody else to do, it might take weeks. Or in the case of content creation in a training, for example, to come up with content for a 1-week class may take you 6 months. But you can have AI do that in 5 minutes or less. The reality is that when AI does that for you, somebody still has to present that class. And the person who's AI cannot become the instructor, the examiner, and all of that. Somebody will still have to do that. So we have to allow our children to develop, to become who they have been created to be. And I think that's where the fulfillment is going to come from. And our task is to show them the opportunity that exists before them.
Okay, quick follow-up to you, Professor Charles. In the future, will university degrees become obsolete? Do you foresee that happening?
I know that has been a big debate. I think some smarter people than me, people like the addressings of the world, for example. For those who don't know, addressing was the first person that introduced a browser system, Netscape. He was the inventor of Netscape. I think his position is that they are not necessarily going to replace all these people. You're going to have a different group of people, different kind of people doing different types of jobs. So if the question is if AI is going to replace, that's the question, right? Replace
will university degrees be obsolete?
University degrees be obsolete? I don't think so. I do not think so. And the reason I say that is, well, if we're going to have AI engineers, somebody may want to go to a university and become better than Amos, than Toks, than myself, or than yourself, because the higher they go, the more knowledge they are going to get. They become the go-to people for AI technology, for example. Something is going to replace AI. Maybe watch 10 years from now, 15 years from now, we might be talking about something else. And so because a university degree brings about a certain discipline in doing things in life, because it kind of take all the stuff we have, all the knowledge we have, and try to put them in a controlled environment to make sure that you're able to apply the knowledge that you have, or the knowledge that the individual has, and be able to apply it to the environment. I don't think that you can get that just by being a practitioner alone, because you are not applying that science. That science of execution, which a university degree can give you. So no, I don't believe university degrees are going to become obsolete. I was in a presentation, I think like 2 weeks ago, they were talking about AI, and somebody said, "Oh, what about the professors? Are they going away?" It's like, no, at that time, no, I wasn't thinking about the ones but the actual people who stand in front of university students and start telling them about the realities of life. AI can tell you the story, but AI cannot tell you the experience I've had in dealing with John Chambers, for example, of Cisco Systems, who I always say when he speaks, presidents listen. Because before we started talking about smart cities and smart television and all of that, he was already preaching that message and was talking about how bigger the internet has to be, how we have to have more IP addresses to be able to account for all of that. So the same thing is going to happen. University degree will still be necessary. If you want to go further to learn it again, the prescribed way, if you will, that might be the way to do it. So no, I don't think they will become obsolete. I'm sorry for being long-winded.
No problem. So Amos, the question on the role of parents in the tech future, what, as a matter of urgency, should a parent make the child start doing? 1, 2, 3 things apart from coding? That was the question. Now, while you're answering that, I want you to answer the follow-up. You keep talking about Babio, you are Toks, modern biology, reading, cramming, all those stuff. Now, going forward, what would be the role of cramming in this AI thing? Will the learning process still be the same? So as you advise the parents for the future, so what are the mode of learning also? Is it the same way you and Toks read about modern biology, and you can draw oxygen cycle, nitrogen cycle, redox reaction, and all those things, even in your sleep? Yeah. Is it the same process? Over to you, Amos.
So first of all, sorry, I'm using a light system here. I'm driving.
Okay.
I had to stop in Dallas.
It's okay.
The 3 things for the parents. So parents, I study a lot about the history of education. That's part of my passion. And my first advice for parents is, please study the life of Isaac Newton. Please study the life of the greatest physicists and mathematicians, because what you see happening with them is the only way forward in education. Here's what I mean. Because those people were driven not by state standards, not by exams, but by curiosity, and they used their creativity. And that is what you want for your child. Everything you can do to help them be curious, please do. Help them to get to places where they're asking questions. Why does that work this way? Why does that work? Like, get them thinking for themselves. So that leads me to number two. Mr. Chief Ade asked about what about the cramming and so on. I have tested AI's math ability over and over. And I don't know if you know, some people judge AI by 2 years ago. AI improves massively every other week now. It's not even funny. I built a website that was giving math assessments, and then I made the AI take the assessment, and I made the AI test the system, and the AI has been taking the assessment. The AI now can pass the exam better than the best students. It has learned how to do it. PhD mathematicians are now using AI to double check their proofs. You couldn't do that 3 years ago. So people might have thought, oh, AI makes mistakes. The best mathematician in the world, literally one of the best today, Terence Tao, he uses AI to check his work. Just this last week, AI solved a theorem that nobody had solved. Just this last week. So this is happening already. AI is very capable. So I'm saying all that not to say that your children shouldn't learn math, but here's the key. They should learn a lot of maths, but not because we need them to learn it because of a state test. Because no, we don't need that. We have agents that can do calculation. And some people might say, well, but AI makes mistake on this and that. Well, here's the thing people don't know. There was a system before AI that was not a probabilistic system. So AI is more on probabilities. There was a system that was more fixed. It's called Wolfram Alpha and Mathematica. That works. That system is what engineers use today. So my point is the computational load, we have to be careful with how we deal with it. What I'm saying is this. If we're telling children to do 50 math problems a day and they're burning out, it's not worth it. You have to gauge where the child is at, because the reality is you don't want them to burn out unnecessarily, but you want them to keep being curious and learning a lot. So I say that to say this. Here's my last third point. So I said, study the greatest mathematicians. Make sure your children are learning with curiosity. And then lastly, sorry, my camera moves. Lastly, here's the last major piece. There's a famous mathematician called Johannes Kepler. He was a physicist. And Kepler was the one who told us, first we knew that the sun was the center of the solar system and not the earth. That was Copernicus. Then Galileo helped to build on that. Then Kepler came. This was what led us into the scientific revolution. And that's the point for the parents. Parents, like I'm telling you and I'm begging, because I see where some of this is going. Teachers are sometimes frustrated. They don't know what to do. Oh, we're trying to catch who used AI and who didn't use AI. If your children love learning for learning's sake, you will never worry about that issue. Because why would they want to cheat? Because they already love to do it. And it is possible. So I'll end with Kepler's story. So when Johannes Kepler came, his problem was not solving whether the earth was going around the sun. It was, what is the path? Is it a circular path or is it an elliptical path? And he found out that it was an elliptical path. Why was Kepler able to do some of the work he did very fast? Because somebody invented a calculating machine that he used. He used the calculating machine to elevate his understanding. If you use AI properly and it's grounded in the right frameworks, you should be able to finish 3 to 4 years of material that used to take people 1 year. That's the point I'm trying to get at. AI can help you learn more, but it shouldn't be so you just pass the test. It should be because you love to learn. So, Mr. Ade, the issue of cramming, it's not so much about cramming, it's learning how to learn. One of the most important skills now is knowing how to learn, because your job can come tomorrow and tell you, hey, we're no longer using that software. We're using this software. How fast can you learn the new software? That's the new gold. Whoever learns to learn fast will win. Cramming alone will not cut it. Learning how to learn will.
Fantastic. The only thing I want to add was based on something that Toks said. When he said that when your child is doing well in class, that means there's capacity for that child to go further than that. Because I remember when I was younger, I knew somebody that was 6 years old, a 6-year-old that read the entire Quran. Can you imagine a 6-year-old reading the entire Quran? Now, that's ability to recite it from the beginning to the end. So that means that child and so many other 10 years old have capacity for more. So, well, it's a two-part series, like I said, preparing your child to lead in the AI and the STEM economy. We've been talking to Professor Charles Orbih, Amos Tarfa, Amos the maths guy, now the AI guy, and Toks, Shopeju, the data man. So part one, I'm sure you've all learned a lot, and watch out for part two.